Thank you for the beautiful introduction. Undeservingly, but thank you. That was beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So, friends, I'm actually looking around this room, and I'm thinking, what am I going to tell all of you that you know so much more than me, who are so much more in the forefront of service than I am? So I know a lot of us are very humble. We don't want to talk about the acts of service that we do. That's why we thought if we write a few words of what we have done, that in one way or the other, it has either impacted somebody else's life, or the fact that somebody has done some act of service that it has impacted my life, and put it in this little box of treasures. It felt like opening a box of treasure, really. Maybe we can open the gathering like that. But if you haven't written, if you prefer to say a few words about what you have done that has really changed somebody's life, or somebody has done that has something that has changed your lives, please feel free to talk. If you don't mind, I'm going to read a few of these. So the first one says, loving kindness of a friend when I was sick, and helped a friend by offering a lift when their car was in service. Then this one says, there is this youth that has been working for us. He has great potential. Unfortunately, his home environment was very toxic with an abusive alcoholic father. I encouraged him to take a separate house and move out. Helped him with deposit and first month's rental, and he moved out. Recently, I met a friend of his that said moving out of that house was great. He has given up drinking, and he has turned his ways around. Sure. Another one says, a friend visited me at a time of emotional distress, and I gave ride to someone when it was raining. Then there is one more, says, I knew an elderly couple. The husband fell ill and was not well for some time. Before he passed on. I used to visit him regularly. Nothing really much, just sitting, saying some prayers, and we would chat a bit. I realized how important those visits were to them when on the day of the funeral of the husband, she insisted that I walk alongside her with her family. She said I was like family. So these are what we got. Would anybody like to say something? Okay. So we'll start with what Abdul Baha says. It's a beautiful writing of Abdul Baha, and he says, that which is confirmed is the oneness of the world of humanity. Every soul who serveth this oneness will undoubtedly be assisted and confirmed. So obviously all this, the root of all this, bringing about oneness of humanity, feeling for humanity, feeling the pain of humanity, is service, isn't it? That's how service can really change the world and bring about that harmony and unity and love. And do you think service is something that we do after we have become whom we want to become? Or do you think service is something that we need to do in order to shape us become who we want to become?
I think, there's also a lot of research that has been done around the effect that doing acts of service or charitable activities, actions can have on someone's health, well-being,
yes,
mental health, etc. And And oftentimes when people are going through very difficult periods where they are mourning maybe a loss or etc., oftentimes we see the effect that being of service can have on that person's well-being.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So this part of whether who we should first become and then serve, or whether our service should come first in order to make us who we become, reminds me of a story of a family who live in Florida. Husband and wife and 3 children. 2 of the children are junior youth and 1 is a child. And it's amazing, for years, this family, every Saturday afternoon, from 1 to 8 o'clock at night, the house door is just open. And every single person is welcomed in. And the kitchen is set with various kinds of snacks, and whoever wants to bring something, they bring something, they put it over there. And they start with devotionals. And the family is musically really gifted. Drums and guitars and singing. And so they start with devotionals, very, very informal. And after that, they have about half an hour to 1 hour of meaningful conversations. Everybody, adults, children, everybody talks about whatever problems or whatever they want to talk about. And then the parents have study circles. The 2 junior youth boys, they have their own junior youth classes, and the child goes to children's classes. And this goes on literally the whole afternoon. And after everything is finished, the children actually are asked, or they volunteer to bring and serve food or whatever, sweets, everything to the adults. And I was talking to the mother and I said, this is so beautiful. And what made you come up with this idea and do this? And she said, I grew up in a family. My parents did this. And I loved it. I cherish those memories, and I want my children to grow up and have this idea of enjoying to serve. And I thought that was so beautiful, and it's always remained with me. So probably service is what makes us, if that makes sense, if from childhood, the love of service is created for us, and we can carry these memories and cherish them in our heart. We'll just pass it on to everybody else. And I'm sure all of us have heard Baha'u'llah's writing about work done in the spirit of service is worship. And I often think Baha'u'llah couldn't have made it easier for us, could he? 3 things in one go. You work, you do it in the spirit of service, and you're worshiping. Right? And that is probably, I am sure that is why our houses of worship, the Mashrabul Askars, are to be built in such a way that there are auxiliary buildings around it that serve the people of that locality. Humanitarian actions or educational or health or whatever it is. Those auxiliary buildings are meant to serve the people of locality. And isn't that beautiful? Basically, practically bringing the spiritual worship and the physical act of worship together and blending it together in those houses of worship. And I always found that very, very beautiful. So I am actually so glad, sorry, I forget your name? Safi. That Safi June spoke about mother's service. So very often when we talk about service, we think, we have to go to a village, or we have to go to a township, or we have to do something for a sick. And we all know the services that the doctors do, the services that the teachers do. Their professions, actually all professions, are very, very service oriented. But what about that youth, especially in this day and age, with everything going around them, that is really struggling to live a life with integrity and with dignity. Isn't that a service? Because he's trying to be a useful human being for his society. So, friends, as I was saying, the youth that is really struggling to live his life with integrity and manages to do so, or in this busy days and times, parents who really dedicate themselves to the good upbringing of their children. Don't you think these are also really acts of service? They are acts of service, right? So when I hear about service, the first thing that occurs to me is children's classes, going to villages, devotional gatherings, helping out somebody who is sick. But then I think to myself, which one do I do really? Which one is more important? And I recently heard an example of a pen. What do you think of a pen? When you see it, immediately you see a beautiful pen. You think, what can I do with this pen? Immediately you think, I can write, right? But we can use a pen to write with. We can write poetry with. We can write beautiful holy writings with it. We can draw with a pen. We can write songs with a pen. There is so much potential in the pen. It's just to get it to do what we want it to do. The same is with us. It doesn't mean that if I hope I am a good mother, I cannot teach somebody else's. I cannot teach my neighbor's child, or I cannot go to visit somebody who is not well. So we can actually live a coherent life. We can do many things at the same time. We can work, and if that work is in the spirit of service, that itself is worship. If you're a teacher, if I'm a teacher, if my aim is just to come during my working hours, get a salary, go home, is that really service? Even though teaching is a noble act? But if I'm a teacher and I go to school and I see, okay, it's 4:30, I have to knock off, but there's a child that I have to help. A child needs my attention. I stay back. That is purity of motive. That is the act of service. And that is worship itself. So there is another writing of Abdul Baha that we all look as role model of spirituality in action, really. He has written, "You must become distinguished for loving humanity, for unity and accord, for love and justice. In brief, you must become distinguished in all the virtues of the human world, for faithfulness and sincerity, for justice and fidelity, for firmness and steadfastness, for philanthropic deeds and service to the human world, for love toward every human being, for unity and accord with all people, for removing prejudices and promoting international peace. Finally, you must become distinguished for heavenly illumination and for acquiring the bestowals of God. I desire distinction for you. This must be the point of distinction among you." This is service. Isn't it deep? And very difficult to achieve, obviously. Now, service is we always think service is beautiful. I myself, when I hear there is a need somewhere, I get all motivated. I'm going to do it. And then, for example, I dedicate my Saturday afternoons and I say, okay, I'm going to do this every Saturday afternoon. And then some time goes, and I'm being very honest. Sometimes I get tired after a whole week of working. Saturday afternoon, there's a nice movie going on TV or series that I like to sit and watch. And then an actual example, Wahid and I, we go to Soweto to a school with a couple of friends every Wednesday afternoon. So Wednesday afternoons, we have to take off, and it's quite a bit of a drive. It's about 45 minutes drive, if I'm not mistaken. And we go to this school with other friends and we teach children. And there are many afternoons that work is really overwhelming, and now we have to leave everything and we have to go. And sometimes we even think of coming up with an excuse of maybe this Wednesday, if we don't go, it's okay, they can manage. But by God's grace, if I try to escape it sometimes, he always motivates me and he says, let's go. And it's the other way around. And one thing I can assure you, every single time that we felt like not going, but we have gone, after we have come back, we have been so much more lighthearted. We felt so much happier. And we felt so grateful that we actually did. And that feeling itself is a huge motivation for the next Wednesday to come. So service is not easy. As glorious as it sounds, it needs courage. It needs that getting up and doing. It needs getting out of that comfort zone that we are in. But I am sure all of you have experienced, once we do it, we are super happy. There is a deep sense of satisfaction that we are actually grateful that we are in a place that we have this opportunity to do the service. Very often I have heard from my own children, but the world is in so much turmoil, there is so much going on. I am just a person. What can I do? And this is, to me, an illusion of smallness. We think that we are small. And I've told them this story. I'm sure a lot of you know the story about the seashell by the seaside. So there were these two friends that were walking by the seashore, and one of them kept on bending and picking up shell and throwing it into the sea. And the friend said, why are you taking this trouble? There are so many shells by the seashore, and obviously you're not going to be able to throw all of them back into the sea. And the friend smiled, bent, took another shell, threw it into the sea, and he said, but it made a difference to this one. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter how small our act of service, I think. Doesn't matter what we do. Doesn't matter for who we do it. What matters is to serve that person or that being that is kept in the palm of our hand now, where we are, with absolute love and devotion, with sincerity, with a love to serve, and know that it doesn't only help that individual, but it gives me a lighter heart too. Somebody once said that I loved what this person said. I've written it down here. He says, every person's measure of himself is the number of people that he serves. Every person's measure of himself, my worth, is how many people I actually serve. And that includes himself in a good way. Serving oneself by developing one's own self. So actually every day, if I try and grow myself in a good way, aren't I trying to be a better person for this world that we live in? And isn't that a kind of service too? And to that point, Abdul Baha says again, the honor and distinction of the individual consists in this, that he, among all the world's multitudes, should become a source of social good. I'm not going to talk much, friends. As I said, I looked around and I said, what am I going to say to this group of friends that know so much more than me? But I came across a couple of youth actually, who rendered some acts of service, and they had something to say about their service. And I would like to read that for you if you don't mind. Michaela Jackson, she's 22. After she went for an act of service, she says, just do it. There are so many things in life that could distract you from service and from the fact that the purpose we were all created is to work together to build a better world. If you have the means, take the chance. Even if you feel wary going into it, service grows you in ways that you can never predict and will always be grateful for. Even if you don't think that you have the means, that is time or opportunity, consult with institutions around or near you to think about how those perceived boundaries can be removed. Maya Panahi, 18. She says, I began to really trust in God. This wasn't just us doing our thing. It was God working through us. She recalls praying with her team each day, reminding myself to put my 100% effort into it and trust the results to God. I will now end by this quote from Abdul Baha. I found it beautiful. It is not through lip service only that the elect of God have attained to holiness, but by patient lives of active service they have brought light into the world. Therefore, strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Turn towards God and seek always to do that which is right and noble. Raise the fallen, comfort the sorrowful, bring healing to the sick, reassure the fearful, rescue the oppressed, bring hope to the hopeless, shelter the destitute. Thank you, Marie.